connection to me because this is Cheryl Lynn. Our new representative for the 46th, which is the district I live in, is Dara Farivar, who is currently has worked for both Open Doors for Multicultural Families and is now working with, has been for a few years, Disability Rights Washington as their Director of Public Policy. And as the daughter of Iranian immigrants, has done a lot in terms of helping children who are immigrants or refugees.
Iranian.
And we are working on setting up our interpreter switch. We have an interpreter switch right now. And I will open it up to both of the representatives. Yes, we had some questions in terms of, one things we were just going to ask is kind of an update. What do you expect from this session? And also, what is effective in winning support from lawmakers? You know, what have you found when we're helping to advise our members and families? What are some of the most effective things we can be doing for advocating towards getting laws passed? Thank you.
Okay, Daria, did you want me to go first, or do you want to?
Go for it, Senator Peterson.
All right, thanks. So hello, everybody. I'm Jamie Peterson. I represent the 43rd Legislative District. The maps that you just saw were actually the old maps. So you should, don't rely on those for figuring out who your representatives are. Laurel Hurst, for example, is now in the 43rd, taken away from the 46th, but North Wallingford and the University Heights area in Ravenna and Green Lake are part of Representative Farivar's district and no longer part of the 43rd district. So urge you to check that out as you figure out who your legislators are. I also want to start by acknowledging that one of the most effective things that you can do is have the spouse of one of your legislators go to work doing special ed, because I get to hear pretty much every night about the adventures that Eric has in the distinct classroom at Roosevelt. And I already considered myself an ally, but I have to say that that after hearing about those experiences, I am really determined that this session we're going to make significant progress on funding special education in the state budget. So just stepping back for a second, the big picture here is that for the last 2 years in the state operating budget, you know, roughly 52% of which it goes to K-12 education. We have had, we've been pretending that enrollment stayed the same as it was in 2019 before the pandemic. And the reason for that was that, you know, enrollment had gone down on average about 5% across the state. Most of the funding that's driven out from Olympia goes to fund on a per student basis. And there are, it's more per student for kids in special ed, not enough more. We'll come back to that in a second. But the effect of the pandemic was to drop those enrollments. And so we did not want to punish school districts during the pandemic when we assumed that enrollments were going to rebound. When we came back for the supplemental last year in 2022, in the 2022 session, it turns out enrollments had not rebounded, in fact, and then that is even truer now. Seems to be fairly flat, so at least it's not dropping anymore, but it's about 5% down. And the effect of that is that there's, in our budget projections, assumed a savings of something like $2 billion from the K-12 system that everyone else who wants money out of the operating budget is viewing as fair game for them. I sure hope that we don't think of it that way. I know that districts, including Seattle, have been trying to prepare for the possibility that their funding will be going down according to the allocation formulas that we have. But what I'm hoping we can do is think of 2023 as an opportunity to protect that box of funding that we already have available for K-12 and think about how we can use this as an opportunity to change the allocation formulas that we have already in place, essentially to protect the money, to keep it in K-12 and have it go to the purposes that we all have said that we agree with and that we have not been funding adequately. So those could include full funding of the actual costs of special education. It could include better funding for nurses and mental health counselors across the state. Could also include better funding for student transportation, better funding for lower class sizes. There are a lot of things that have been on our agenda, but have been so expensive that we haven't been able to do them. And the Supreme Court took the heat off of us when it said that we had resolved our obligations under McCleary. So what I hope that folks can rally around is the idea that this is a historic opportunity for us to increase some of those allocations that are being driven out. I don't see, for example, how it can possibly be the case that services that are required by federal law and by state law to be provided are not basic education, right? So now we have a chance to say, hey, we've got a $400 million shortfall in state funding for special education. Let's take care of that. This is the opportunity. So, I appreciate the folks who are saying, well, let's get rid of the cap on the percentage of students who can be considered as being in special ed, or let's bump up a little bit the formulas by some percentage. I think we really should be asking for what we want, which is, hey, what are the actual costs that districts are incurring? And that's the money that the state ought to be driving out to districts. I think if we did that one thing, that would solve a lot of the Seattle shortfall that's being projected and allow the enrichment levy to be used for actual enrichment rather than what I think is basic education. So I'm going to pause there and give some opportunity for Representative Farvar to speak. But I look forward to the questions and discussion, and am so thankful for the advocacy that all of you are doing and will be doing in the next session to help us get to good results. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Peterson, and everybody here tonight, and for the opportunity to speak with you all. I'm just hoping to just briefly introduce myself and express how excited I am to be the representative-elect for the 46th district and hopefully work with all of you. Cheryl Ann mentioned, I started my, state legislative advocacy career working at Open Doors for Multicultural Families. I'm really proud to have worked and established their advocacy program over there. And as a result, I spent a good amount of time, sitting in on direct one-on-one advocacy that family support specialists were providing. Spent a good amount of time sitting in on IEP meetings and seeing what families who have loved ones with developmental disabilities who don't speak English were having to navigate when they were trying to support their students' educational success. From there, I ended up at Disability Rights Washington, in part because I was seeing these students that we were working with be funneled into the school to prison pipeline when they didn't get the supports that they needed. And much of that, as we know, unfortunately does come back to funding and the resources that are available to support our teachers and in turn support our students. I'm really excited to work with champions, including Senator Peterson and folks like my seatmate, Representative Paulette, to do what we can to increase funding for, as we said, special education, which is a general education component. I'm really interested in taking a look at isolation of students with disabilities. I'll just take a pause here for a moment and say I've lived in the 46th district my entire life. I grew up here. I went to Roosevelt High School, Exine Middle School, and View Ridge Elementary. I'm sure some of you all remember not too long ago, there was a really egregious incident of isolation at View Ridge Elementary. believe, a Black special education student who was isolated outdoors in a really terrible situation. I'm really interested in doing some work around that. We know students who experience isolation are more likely to enter that school to prison pipeline as well. And so we need to tackle that and make sure that, again, teachers and students have the resources they need to be successful and use other methods when a situation is escalated or prevented from being escalated in the first place. I also heard a good amount over the last few months about ASL interpretation being a struggle in particular, seeking out, having a pool of ASL interpreters, and then the rates that folks are able to pay to ASL interpreters as well, creating challenges and students and families not getting access to the interpretation they need. So
Yana, I am really sorry to interrupt, but we are having to, yes, you have,
sorry.
I set that tone for the beginning of the meeting. I apologize.
No, thank you for interrupting me. So just to sum up, those are two issues that I am hoping to do work on this session. I would love your feedback and your support on those issues. If I have the ability to, I will go ahead and put my email in the chat. I do have access to my legislative email address now, and I'm trying to schedule as many appointments as I can prior to the legislative session getting underway. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all tonight.
This is Cheryl Lynn. Thank you, both of you. From your lips to every lawmaker's yes vote. Yana, do you want to take on from here?
Yeah, we're hoping that legislators would be willing to stay and ask, if anybody had any questions for them, they could take some, if you would like to. Oh, this is Yana. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's been a couple of days, an IP meeting coming up. So that takes over your brain. You don't even, most of you probably know. Anyway, so if you would like to just ask a question, feel free to unmute, speak your name, and then ask. I'm gonna see if somebody would rather put a question in the chat. Okay, I have one question that was sent to me. Thank you. Can you share with us, each of you, what committees you're serving on in the upcoming legislative session?
It's probably easier for me than Representative Farvar because I'm not sure that they've finished their committee on committees yet. So I serve on the Senate Ways and Means Committee, which does the operating capital budgets, the Senate Early Learning and K-12 Education Committee, which does policy for early learning in K-12, the Senate Rules Committee, which decides essentially which bills come out onto the floor calendar, and the Senate Law and Justice Committee. And I will make one small correction to the introduction. I'm the majority floor leader, not the majority leader. Senator Billig is the majority leader. My job within the Senate, I'm part of small leadership, but my job is essentially to regulate the flow of bills through the chamber. So I assign all of the bills that come into committees and then put them into orders of consideration for votes by the Senate from the floor calendar.
Okay, this is Jan. Do you Representative-elect Farvar, do you want to share what your goal is, which committee you're running for or going for?
Yes, thank you. So Senator Peterson mentioned I do not have my committee assignments yet, and as a brand new legislator, I just kind of express my wishes where I hope to land and cross my fingers that there's room on those committees and that folks would like to see me there. So right now, again, because of my interest in the kind of the school to prison pipeline and seeing so many folks end up in the criminal legal system instead of getting the support they needed early on, and because of all of the conversations I had over the last few months, I have indicated support in being on the newly changed committee name. I'm going to mess up the title, but working on public safety, civil rights and judiciary. I've also expressed interest in capital budget as well as a few other committees as well. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will. Thank you. This is Yana. So we have a question. Janice, you were first. Do you want to go ahead? And then Michelle after.
Great. Thanks. My name is Janice White. I'm the Family and Community Engagement Chair of the PTSA this year. I'm sure you both have read the Seattle Times series, the 2 articles that have come out so far about non-public agencies, and specifically the very troubling information about one of those in particular, the Northwest Soil School. As Director Rankin knows, I testified at the Seattle School Board meeting last week because in my child's journey through Seattle Public Schools, more than once, it was suggested that we look at Northwest Soil as a placement for him. And as a parent who's been really involved, I was able to ask around and learn enough about what was happening at that school. It's not been a secret. Parents in the know have known for years about the problems at the Northwest Soil schools. And so I was able to say, no, I'm not sending my child there. And I'm wondering if after, reading these stories, if either of you have some thoughts about steps that the legislature might consider taking to address the issues that this series has really highlighted for us about the problems in general with the whole system of how we take certain students with disabilities that our school districts have given up on and send them to these non-public agencies that have very little oversight.
Well, I'll jump in and say that at a minimum, we need to figure out how to create the oversight and accountability for any schools any private schools that we're going to be sending kids to. So there were quotations from OSPI in those articles that suggested that there was no ability for them to provide adequate oversight or to do auditing or to take any sort of enforcement action against Northwest Soil. And so at a minimum, that's something that we need to correct. I guess I have a very intimate but limited view into the from Eric's experience at Roosevelt into some really challenging kids, and I don't know how realistic it is to think that even in Seattle, with all of the resources that it has available, that it's going to be possible for all children to get the services that they need within the public school setting. So I don't want to foreclose the possibility that there could be kids for whom the right answer is to have a publicly funded place in another school. But there's no question that if we're going to do that, we need to ensure that the kids who are sent there are being educated and cared for by teachers who are certified and in conditions that are appropriate for them to get the best education that they can.
And this is Daria. I just jump in and piggyback off of Senator Peterson and say that if folks come together and decide that the best place for individuals is a non-public agency, I would hope that they're coming to that conclusion as a last resort. I don't think that it is the first solution to a student that is having a difficult time communicating or expressing behaviors that might be difficult for staff to accommodate. I really believe that we should be making every attempt we can to include students with disabilities, regardless of that disability, regardless of that student's experience, and that we do ultimately need to provide individualized education to ideally all students, not just students with disabilities. And if that individualized education is going to lead that student to that non-public agency, then as Senator Peterson said, there needs to be appropriate oversight and supervision to ensure that students are getting what they need. You know, the other thing that this brings up for me is this, I mean, the broader conversation around inclusion, and I truly mean inclusion, not the kind of buzzword that inclusion has become, and also is incredibly difficult to ignore the fact that our funding model doesn't actually encourage inclusion. It encourages segregation and isolation of students with disabilities. And that's because the more hours that individuals spend in a self-contained classroom, the more funding the schools are going to get to support that student. And I think that that is backwards. I think that should be flipped to, again, encourage inclusion and make sure that we're not sending students to NPAs as a first option, but again, as a last resort.
Well, thank you. And I see that Michelle, I think you're next with your question. Go ahead, you can unmute.
Thank you very much,
Sorry,
Ayana.
this is Cheryl Lynn. We did get a request to just make sure everybody is slowing down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. And thank you very much for answering Janice White's question. My question is not the same, but I just want to piggyback on what Janice said, that you know, there is very little, well, there's no oversight. There's no accountability. And I am a parent of a student with a disability that attended a non-public agency for 3 years where they were not reporting isolation and restraint to me or to the state. It took me 15 months to get her out of that school. And she just now is in another non-public agency that is a very, very good fit for her. My question is to both of you is how would you prefer, or how would you like to see parents get involved in on a legislative level? I personally went to join this PTSA from my personal PTSA in Issaquah. I joined this Seattle because they are groundbreaking in this, and they're really setting a precedent. It's the largest district in our state, and we now have 10 special education PTSAs in our state. Issaquah is one of them. But Seattle is light years ahead of most of the other special education PTSAs. So therefore, I have to learn from the best, right? I want to know, how do we move this momentum forward? How do we talk to our legislators? How do we get your attention? How do we, you know, bend your ear? How do we go about this all over the state? I just want to know what would be the best process to build on what they've already done.
So I'll jump in again. Thank you for being here. So you have a superpower, which is that you don't live in Seattle. And so you've got 3 legislators in the 5th district, Senator Mark Mullet and Representative Lisa Callan and Representative Bill Ramos, all of whom I think are interested in public schools and are primed to be supportive. So what I would say to you and to all of the folks who are here is, don't wait for session. Now is the time when legislators have more time available, and you're more likely to be able to get on a calendar to have a cup of coffee and to share the story of your experience with the public school system and what needs to be improved. Those personal stories are unequaled by anything else that happens in our process in terms of their ability to change minds, to change hearts, and to change focus for legislators on the issues that they're going to be working on during the upcoming session. So don't don't wait. Find your legislators, reach out to them, and tell them right now that you hope that they will be advocates for full funding of special education and for any other issues that you care about in the upcoming session. That's really the best and most effective thing that you can do to share your own stories, and soon.
This is Yana. Also, can you both include what kind of catches your ear the most? Is it testimony? Is it written testimony? Is it that personal connection? Is it and what topics, or what is it that you will keep reading? Because a lot of our stories are very long. We are on pretty bumpy journey with our children. And so, what will keep you reading that message if you're getting into that?
Daria, do you want to start?
This is Daria. I think you should probably listen to Senator Peterson, since he's been a legislator much longer than I have, on what actually catches their ear. I can give you the perspective of an advocate, but I'll let him take this.
There are 147 different human beings who are elected to the legislature, and there's an amazing amount of variety among them. So I can't give you an answer that is universal. What I will say is that for most of us, there's nothing that can compare to a crisp, compelling story from a constituent on an issue that we're facing, right? And you can take that with you through discussions in committee and in caucus, and as you're thinking about what your priorities are going to be and what you're really going to fight for. Those stories stay with people on an emotional level, I think, a lot more than the sort of dry spreadsheets and whatever that we see about funding. You're going to have to judge your audience in each case about how much detail they're capable of absorbing. For many of them, you probably need to reduce your story to a paragraph or two if you're going to write it down, or to 2 or 3 minutes, because they're not going to carry much more than that anyway. So I remember years and years ago when I was in law school, there was a paralegal at one of the firms that I summered at who said, I wrote you a 3-page letter because I didn't have time to write you a 1-page letter. It really is true that it takes more effort to condense it down, but that's because our time is so limited during the pressure of the legislative session. That's the effort that as advocates you all need to take so that you actually have attention paid to you. So that is it. It's more work, I'm going to concede immediately, but that is how you become effective.
This is Daria. I guess if I could add one thing, again, I would say mostly from the advocate's perspective, but as somebody who's been working in disability advocacy for a good amount of time, I would suggest, when possible, bring your students in as well. It sounds like we're probably going to have a hybrid legislative session. That opportunity for virtual testimony is so valuable. And so I would really strongly encourage that, when possible, have your students tell their stories, do it together, whatever makes the most sense. But it's really, really powerful when we see students show up. I know over the last couple of months, I spent some time at Eckstein and Roosevelt speaking directly to students, and it is really incredible to listen to students and hear how passionate they are about these issues as well. So that would be my just one plug, one suggestion.
Well, thank you both so much. It was a pleasure. We are incredible that we are out of time that we allotted, but we appreciate you coming, and we still have some business, which includes, and you are welcome to stay and more than welcome to stay for this part. We are going to discuss and vote in our proposed legislative priorities. We actually had we had planned something before that, but I really want to thank you both for coming and for doing the hard work. And we're just going to make sure that you hear from our community plenty, you and others. And that's where where the advocacy committee is doing the work. You know, we start as a reminder on January 7th, we have the Legislative Advocacy 101 workshop with Ramona Hattendorf from Arc of King County. So please come. There's going to be lots of good tips, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having us. And Director Rankin, we'll look forward to seeing you in another week and collaborating on how we can work together with Seattle Public Schools.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Excited to work together.
It was lovely to meet you, Representative-elect Parivar. Thank you, and you both have a good night. If you're leaving, if you're staying, we would love to see you stay, but up to you. We know you guys are all busy. So we had in our draft agenda, we had a video that we wanted to share. In the interest of time, we're just going to drop a little short video, which is our video about how to kind of overview about the legislative session. So we're going to post the link into the chat and move on, because we are our agenda is packed and we want to allow enough time for breakout rooms. And so I'm just going to ask Sherilyn yep, thank you. She's reading my mind. And so we're going to kind of give an overview with what the Seattle Special Education PTSA proposed legislative priorities are for the 2023 session, and this includes inclusionary practices, addressing the student mental health crisis, appropriate and timely identification of students with disabilities, equitable access to education for all students with disabilities, and increasing equitable family engagement. What we would like to do is for you to take a few minutes to maximum 5. We're hoping to review the detailed priorities. And I think Mel was planning to put the link in the chat. Each of the umbrellas of the topics have further information why we advocate for those priorities. Thank you, Mel. I did sit on my reading glasses yesterday, so my apologies. My arms are too short. So now we're going to have you look at them, and then you can join breakout rooms according to the topic that most interests you. If you would like to come in and discuss, if you have any proposed changes, and then we can come back and discuss if there are any changes, and then we will take a vote on the priorities. Mel, do you have anything to add? You want to add? No. So,
no, I'm sorry. Hi, this is Mel. I don't have anything to add. I just dropped the document with the priorities into the chat, and I'm going to release the room so that everybody can choose which room they want to go into, which breakout room they want to go into to have their discussions about their highest interest. I will say that there's limited characters for the room names, so I tried to shorten them up, but they are in order that they're in the document on the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and open up all the rooms and everyone can pick which room they want to go into. Can everybody see that? Can you see that?
Yeah, you might need to, this is Yana, you might need to scroll down to see which room you are joining. To see the list of rooms that you want to join and to pick. It's late.
I can't.
This is Janice. If you click on breakout rooms on the bottom of your screen, it will pop up. Otherwise, you won't see it. I just discovered that.
Oh, thank you, Janice. Laura, it looks like you are leaving. Is that what I'm reading? Yeah. Because otherwise we needed to decide which group are the ASL interpreters going in. Okay. If you're having trouble getting into a room, let me know and we're going to try to assign you. Yeah, unless the person, I mean, we need to figure out a way.
Yeah, so in the chat or directly to your interpreter, if you can let your interpreter know which room you want to go to, then they can go with you as long as we don't end up with split. But I think we have a small number, so it's probably okay. Sorry, that was Christy.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, I'm going to try, this is Yana, I'm going to try to see if people need help. Ashley, would you like me to assign you to a room? Ashley might be putting children to bed this hour, actually. Eric Peterson, would you like to join our room of any? Oh, calling people out. Oh, Sam, would you like me to add you to a group?
No, I thought I would just kind of hang out for a few minutes and see.
Yeah, just hang out. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to watch it over here. Keep
Someone
company.
has to keep an eye on you, Yana. What are you gonna do?
Oh my God, I'm going. I'm just looking. It also tells us which topic is most interesting to people. And I see inclusionary practices and timely identification of students are leading. And shortly behind is student mental health. And the last two undecided is access to resources and family engagement.
Yeah, at one point you only had one in family engagement.
Interesting. Maybe we're doing such a great job. I don't know, but the district needs to do a better job, right?
Yeah, they do. They really do.
Okay, well, thank you for hanging out, and I'm gonna join one of those.
Which one are you going to, Yana?
I'm going to timely identification of students. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. This is Yana. I'm thinking we can actually turn off the recording since we no longer have Representative Alex Farivar and